This video is to explain the division area model. We're going to start with a two-digit dividend, 76 divided by 3. The dividend is 76, so it goes on the bottom. The divisor is 3, so it goes on the side. Now, how many ever digits you are in your dividend is how many sections you would have in your area model. So this is a two-digit number, so I have 2 sections in my area model. The first section stands for the tens place, so I would start by multiplying by 10. 10 times 3 is 30. And I look at my dividend and say, do I have at least 30? Yes, I do, so I'm going to keep going. Next is 20. 3 times 20 is 60. I have at least 60, so I keep going. Next is 30. 30 times 3 is 90. Oh, 90 is more than I have, so I cross that off and say that's too much. Then I go back 1 and I circle my partial quotient, which would be the 20. I take the 60 and put it inside the box, and I subtract it. And then 76 minus 60 is 16. Then I move on to my ones place. So I'm going to start with 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 2. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. And when I run out of room, I just come make another column. 4 times 3 is 12. 5 times 3 is 15. 6 times 3 is 18. Oh, that's too much, so I stop and I go back 1. I circle my 5, that's my partial quotient. 15, my product I put in the box, and I subtract that. Oh, and I have 1 left over. That's a remainder, so I put it on the side. Remainder 1. So now I need to find my quotient, and to find my full quotient, I add my partial quotients. So I had 20 and 5 up there, so I add that together, and I get 25. So my quotient is 25. Well, I'm always with a remainder of 1. I'm always going to check myself. To check myself, I add what's on the inside, or I could multiply. I'm going to show you both methods. The first way to check is through multiplication, and I take my quotient, which was 25, and I multiply it by my dividend, which was 3. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry my 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So 75. But I started with 76. We can't forget to add that remainder. So 75 plus my 1 remainder does equal 76. So I would say yes, I am correct. 25 is my quotient. The other way to do that is to add the partial products that we found and put inside the box up here. So then I would add 65, 15, and 1. So 60, 15, and 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 70. So 76. Again, I am correct. So I can say that my quotient is 25 with a remainder of 1. And just to practice that one more time, 82 divided by 4. So 82 goes on the bottom, 4 on the side. I start with my tens place. So 10 times 4 is 40. 20 times 4 is 80. 30 times 4 would be 120. That's too much, so I come back, circle my partial quotient, put my partial product in the box, and I subtract. That leaves me with 2. 1 times 4 is 4. Oh, that's too much, so that would be a 0 in that box, and I have a 2 of a remainder. So my quotient, well, my partial quotients, all I have is 20, so my quotient is 20. To check myself, I would add these middle numbers, so 80 plus 2 is 82. So 82 divided by 4 would equal 20 with a remainder of 2. Now let's move into a 3-digit dividend. The 145 still goes on the bottom, 5 still on the side. The only difference with a 3-digit number is now I have 3 sections to my area model, and I start by multiplying by 100. Well, 100 times 5 would be 500. Oh, well, I only have 145, so that's too much to start with. I can't have any hundreds. So then I'm going to move to my tens place. So 10 times 5 is 50. 20 times 5 is 100. 30 times 5 would be 150. That's more than I have, so I cross it off, go back one. That's my partial quotient. I put my partial product in the box, and I subtract it. That leaves me with 45. Go to my ones. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 5 is 30. 7 times 5 is 35. 8 times 5 is 40. 9 times 5 is 45. 10 times 5 would be 50. That's too much. So I'm going to come back to the 9. 45 in the box. Subtract it. And I have 0 remainder. To find my quotient, I add my partial quotients up top, which was 20 and 9. So 20 plus 9 is 29. To check myself, I add the middle piece, so 100 plus 45, my partial products, and I get 145. So I am correct. The quotient is 29. Just to practice another one with 3 digits, 543 divided by 6. Start with the hundreds. 100 times 6 is 600. That's more than I have, so they cross that off. That's a 0. Go to my tens place. 10 times 6 is 60. 20 times 6 would be 120. 30 times 6 would be 180. 40 times 6 would be 240. 50 times 6 would be 300. 60 times 6 would be 360. 70 times 6 would be 420. 80 times 6 would be 480. 90 times 6 would be 540. 100 times 6 would be 600, and we've already figured out that's too much, so I go back to the 90. It's 540. I subtract that, and I have a 3. So I would go to my ones place, and I'm just going to kind of draw an arrow over here. 1 times 6 is 6. Well, that's too much, so that would be a 0. And I have a remainder of 3. So my quotient would be my partial quotients up here, which is 90, with a remainder of 3. To check myself, 540 plus my remainder of 3 is 543, which is what I started with, so I am correct. Okay, lastly we're going to do a 4-digit dividend, and I tend to make my area models just slightly longer so I have room to work. This time we're going to divide 5,654 by 7. So my dividend still goes on the bottom and my divisor on the side. And this time, since I have 4 digits, I'm going to start with 1,000. So 1,000 times 7 is 7,000. Well, that's too much, so there's going to be 0 thousands. And I move on to my hundreds. 100 times 7 would be 700. 200 times 7 would be 1,400. Sorry. 300 times 7 would be 2,100. 400 times 7 would be 2,800. 500 times 7 would be 3,500. 600 times 7 would be 4,200. 700 times 7 would be 4,900. 800 times 7, and I'm actually going to, move it to this side. 800 times 7 would be 5,400. 900 times that 7 would be 6,300. And that's too much, so I'm going to come back. My partial quotient is 800. And I have 5,400. And I'm going to subtract that. And that gives me 254. So I'm going to move to my tens place. 10 times 7 is 70. 20 times 7 is 140. 30 times 7 is 210. 40 times 7 is 280. And that's too much, so I'm going to come back to my 30. That's my partial quotient. Put my 210 in the box. And I subtract it. And I end up with 44. And so then I'm going to go to my ones place. 1 times 7 is 7. 2 times 7 is 14. 3 times 7 is 21. 4 times 7 is 28. 5 times 7 is 35. 6 times 7 is 42. 7 times 7 is 49. Oop, 49 is too much. I'm going to come back to my 6. 42 would go in my box. And then I would subtract 44 minus 42. And I have 2 left over, so that's my remainder. From my quotient, I add my partial quotients. So I have 800, 30, and 6. That gives me 836. To check myself, I'm going to add my middle numbers. 5,400, 210, 42, and my remainder of 2. 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 1 is 5, 4 plus 2 is 6, 5 plus 0 is 5. So 5,654, which is what I started with, so I am correct. My quotient would be 836. One last one to practice. 3,543 divided by 9. Now I'm going to come down to the bottom and show you the nines trick that I taught them. Tell them if they start with 0 and count down, or count up to 9. And then by the 9, start at 0 and count up to 9 again, but going the opposite direction. I tell them, oop, they magically have their 9s. So 9 times 1 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18, 9 times 3 is 27. That way, if they don't know their 9s and they can't use a multiplication chart, they can always do that to help them figure it out. Now that unfortunately doesn't work for every fact, but it does work for the 9s. So let's go back up to our problem and get started. So 1,000 times 9 would be 9,000. Well, that's too much, so I would have 0 thousands and move on to my hundreds. 100 times 9 is 900. 200 times 9 is 1,800. 300 times 9 is 2,700. 400 times 9 would be 3,600, which is too much. So I'm going to cross that off, go back. My partial quotient is 300. My partial product is 2,700. Then I'm going to subtract that. Which gives me 800, oops, that should have been 2, sorry, 843. Now I'm going to go to my tens. 10 times 9 is 90. 20 times 9 is 180. 30 times 9 is 270. 40 times 9 is 360. 50 times 9 is 450. 60 times 9 is 540. 70 times 9 is 630. 80 times 9 is 720. 90 times 9 is 810. And 100 times 9 is 900, which we've already said is too much. So I'm coming back to my 90. 810 goes in the box. Subtract 810. And I'm left with 33. 1 times 9 is 9. 2 times 9 is 18. 3, 27. 4, 36. That's too much. Come back. 27. So 33 minus 27. I subtract. And I get 6. So I have a remainder of 6. So my quotient, I add my partial quotients, 390 and 3, which gives me 393 with a remainder of 6. To check myself, 2,700, 810, 27, and 6. And I get 3,543, which is what I started with, so I am correct. My quotient is 393, remainder 6. Now, one thing you may be thinking is, why do they have to go all the way past where their number is? If they see it's 33 and it's 27, why can't they stop? And the reasoning is a lot of them don't know their facts, so they stop too soon. If they don't keep going till they pass up their number, then they'll stop way before they need to because they don't know their facts well enough. So we have them go past their number and then come back one. That way that they don't mess up. And that is partial quotients and area division with area models, excuse me.